What we'd like to do right now is show you a process going forward and a process going backwards. So over here I have a quadratic equation, 6x squared plus 7x minus 5 equals 0. So I want to remind us, do we remember how to factor that or solve that by factoring? So let's just do a little bit of a small review here. Look for its factors. I was able to break the expression up into its factors. Now, knowing the zero principal property, I know that either one of these two terms must equal 0 for the entire product to equal 0. So 3x plus 5, set that equal to 0, solve that, subtract 5 from both sides, divide both sides by 3. And so I find one solution to be negative 5/3. Likewise, I'll do it with the other factored expression. Subtract or add 2 to both sides. Divide both sides by 2. And you can see that we found our two solutions to this quadratic equation. Now, where we're at right now is, well, let's forget that we completely did that, but somehow we knew that our solutions were minus 5/3 and 1/2. Just based on that, do we have enough information to work this problem all the way to the point where we can find out which quadratic expression do they come from? So wipe all this from your memory, pretend it's not there, and let's just start with this and let's see if we can work our way backwards to find out what was the quadratic equation that this came from. Well, we know that these are solutions for x. X equals minus 5/3, x equals 1/2. I want to turn those into equations that equal to 0. So x, add 5/3 to both sides. Subtract x, or 1/2, from both sides. Now I know this feels kind of awkward. We're not used to going in this direction. So what I do, every now and then, I just stop and move up to see if it's making sense. If I started with this, does that make sense? If I started with this, add 1/2 to both sides, does that make sense? That makes sense to me. So that means that, okay, I think I'm headed in the right direction. All right, from here, we know that we can take, well, let's go ahead and eliminate this fraction right here. So let's multiply everything through by a 3. So I have a 3x plus a 5 equals 0. And likewise over here, I'm going to eliminate the fraction by multiplying everything by a 2. Again, I can start from here and work my way backwards. That makes sense. I want to teach myself that going down this process also makes sense. Here I have my two factors, so if I remember this zero principal property, I know that either this term or this term has to equal 0. Likewise, if I started with this, I think it makes sense if we move our way to our solution. Remember, we're just learning to go back to the origin of this problem. And from here, let's FOIL that out. First term times first term. Outers is minus 3x plus the inners at positive 10x. Add those together, combine those terms. Last times last equals my 0. And so there is a quadratic equation that produced these two solutions. In the same way that I started with a quadratic expression or equation and moved down to the two solutions, all I'm doing is reversing the problem backwards, which means that we can start with a solution and find the quadratic function that they came from. Now, one caveat here is that this expression or this equation right here, this is not the only equation that also has these as its solutions. In fact, any multiple of this quadratic equation would also produce those same solutions as well.